Welcome to the Big Money Show. And with us for the hour, Bahnsen Group founder and managing partner David Bahnsen. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Well, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent warns that a prolonged shutdown could hit growth. Meanwhile, President Trump is using the moment to push for permanent cuts to the federal bureaucracy. Are you a fan of the shutdown moment in terms of shrinking the federal bureaucracy?
I don't think it shrinks the bureaucracy at all, and I'll tell you why. We've had about a dozen shutdowns, and last I checked, the bureaucracy is pretty big and got bigger after each one of them. I hate this. It speaks to a very dysfunctional situation. Senator Schumer has walked into a mess here. I don't think there really are any political winners. Our country's better than this. It shouldn't be happening. And when the Republicans did it, I said the same thing. But this one is particularly ridiculous for a variety of reasons. The nuances aren't that important. What matters is there's things that get passed into law because we have a legislative branch of government in Article 1 of the Constitution. They pass it, and then we use gamesmanship and these sorts of bureaucratic tricks to try to do things later. It's all theatrical. It was theatrical when Republicans did it. So I'm being very fair. But in this case, someone needs an off-ramp, and they basically have to get this thing going again. It doesn't matter to markets. Look at the market.
Yeah, markets don't care.
They haven't cared for the last 12 of them, but it matters because it looks bad on our country.
I know you hate these shutdowns, David, but could this be a moment for a big Republican win politically? I mean, Gary's kind of making the case that, and you said this, Democrats stepped in it, Chuck Schumer stepped in it. He's fighting a personal battle. But maybe this one actually works to the benefit of Republicans who want to not extend more government spending for health care and you know, want to cut government a little bit.
I love what you're saying, and I would love for it to be true. But listen, every single thing in this country right now, the way one believes it's playing out depends on what their own side is. It always is in their mind, playing out to the benefit of their side. I think every single thing Lydia said, I agree with. But the one issue about, I think the American people see that the continuing resolution is different than these subsidies expiring. I don't think most people understand that. I think that the MAGA voice will see it the way they see it. The left will see it the way they see it. Ultimately, I think that this is another case of self-selection in American politics. People are going to just go to both sides and rally around their own side. But the fact of the matter is that nothing in this is going to lower deficits. Okay, now you're right that they put this thing to expire at the end of 25, but they did it for the same reason everybody does all of these resolutions the way they do them, because it's impossible to let tax cuts expire and it's impossible to let subsidies expire. One, and this is Milton Friedman 101,
right, because
Gary and I are on the same page about government. There's nothing so permanent as a temporary government subsidy.
Yeah. No, they know that, right? And it's also good for their accounting when they're accounting for all these things.
But do you think that the Republicans are not going to end up joining on some form of extending those Obamacare subsidies?
There are going to be Republicans that will get hit by this. Midterms are coming up. People
see, that's what they're thinking about.
Feel it in their pocketbook.
It's job security.
Right, wrong, or whatever, as Lydia said, they get used to it, and all of a sudden you take it away from me, and I get angry about that because my budget doesn't look the way that it used to look, and the Republicans do have to think about that. So
there is a solution, though, to what exactly you're describing, which is because you can't take it away once people are used to it in their pocketbook. But you don't have to redefine. Medicaid is a poverty relief program. The Republicans didn't try to win the debate. The debate is that Medicaid was being redefined as something for people in basically middle-class circumstances a lot of time that were not working. Holding the line on the emergency social safety net ideologically, then they wouldn't be in this position 4 or 5 years later where a subsidy's on the line. I just think this has got to be a moment where we say, let's not make the mistake in 2021. You know, if the Dems had the votes to do it, then they're going to do it. But we could have been out in front saying, here's what's going on. Now in 25, you can't go win a debate in 2 months.
There's
you
a
need
simple
4 years.
problem, and it's 3 words: subsidies equal votes.
Apple has removed ICE tracking apps like ICE Block from its app store. So this is a move that's coming after DOJ officials, led by Attorney General Pam Bondi, raised concerns that the app endangers federal agents.
There's been some threats to public safety this year from certain people. This is an app that was intended to undermine public safety, period. Good on Apple.
Good that it's gone.
China's shutting down U.S. soybean purchases, and the president may be prepping a $10 billion bailout for American agriculture. And David, this is a huge issue. Many people feel for the farmers, but also feel We can't do another bailout. It's clear China's doing this to a certain degree on purpose as a negotiating tactic. They found other sources, and they're steering away from the United States, realizing how important it is. It's a difficult situation. I'm not necessarily sure writing a $10 billion check is the answer.
Well, they're going to do $14 billion, so I guess that'll be worse than you're worried about. I have a really hard time with us creating a problem for our own people and constituents and then coming to be the rescuer of a problem we caused. You're exactly right. China's doing it for leverage, but it's retaliatory to what we've done, which is what trade wars are. And you can't, I'm an America first guy, and you can't say our tariffs are here to protect Americans, but because the tariffs are hurting Americans, we got to go give $14 billion a bailout.
Right.
They are hurting. They will get this money, and they're hurting because of the tariffs that we imposed.
But wasn't this an issue in the first term with China as well, where the president said you have to take a certain amount of our soybeans? They said they would, then they didn't.
Well, but here's the thing there is it started because soybeans were a solution to was negotiated to the trade war. It started with us just simply imposing various tariffs unilaterally, and then soybeans, along with liquefied natural gas, become two of the only things China really wants to buy from us. And then they didn't need as many soybeans, and then COVID came.
Right.
So they did underbuy what the phase one agreement was, but COVID sort of interrupted all of that. But that was still predicated on the fact that we had launched kind of this tit for tat trade war. I would prefer that we remember the lesson that when you try to do something to protect one segment of the economy, it hurts another segment, and farmers right now are the ones being hurt.
Right.
You know, I was doing stories about farmers as we were talking about tariffs, and so many of them were worried about getting swept up into this, which brings me back to the idea about the process and the whole kind of question about Trump's ability to implement these tariffs unilaterally. I think this really illustrates why there's a legislative process that many argue should have happened and should have unfolded right from the beginning.
Lydia, you sound brilliant, like the Federalist Papers writers here. That's why it's supposed to go through the legislative process.
And it didn't.
Because then there is this democratization of representation that's looking at the different needs
All
of a variety
sides.
of constituents,
Right.
as opposed to a sort of imperial presidency imposing this and then trying to clean it up later with executive imperial power.
Although
but where do you draw the
the
line?
legislature did hand over some of those.
Not for soybeans, not for this side.
Section 232.
Yeah, but this isn't done under 232.
I know he's doing it through a different deal, but the last time he did it was through those sections, and Congress said, here, have the ability to do these tariffs. So if Congress wants to, superintend this.
Yeah, that is what happened
They've
here,
got to claw back the authority because they've given it to the president.
I think that everyone's in agreement that Congress is allowing the president to do things outside of Article 1, and that's on Congress, but it's also on the president. We have an Article 1, 2, 3 separation for a reason. But to Lydia's point, the farmers would get their representation in the deals if it were being done the way our founders intended. And I also want to ask, what about coffee importers? What about other actors, domestic manufacturers that import 40%? Where do you draw the line? Farmers are getting hammered, but so are a lot of other groups. So once we give $14 billion to the farmers, and if you think it stops at $14 billion, I'll sell you a lot of soybeans.
The hands are going to be out.
A bailout for every group that's suffering as a result of this.
The hands are going to be out because there's a lot of distortions out there. You mentioned coffee, Brazil. We're going to have. You know what we're going to see? Another exemption, another exemption.
That's right. But Jackie's
exemption,
point is right, that they can't be a bailout for everyone, but that's why the government's not supposed to be in the business of picking winners and losers.
David, Gary brings up a really good point about, how soon can we see all these deals really come to fruition? When do we actually see the investment in the United States benefiting from these deals that have been inked? And I wonder if there's a question to be asked about how we're getting to these deals. How much of these deals are a product of the tariffs? Because tariffs, they might be here today, but gone tomorrow. So do you have any questions about the permanency of these deals or these investments? The
permanence and the actuality of them coming together, because I've seen press releases and announcements so many times that were not followed by purchase orders. Jackie brought up the soybean issue in China from 5 years ago. This is not criticism of the president, because it's actually one of his best features that he can be such a compelling cheerleader. But we do need to point out that he does like the headline a lot more than the article. cycle. Okay. And in this particular case, I would just say that you have to look at what they were going to be ordering anyways to see what is additive to economic growth. The thing that concerned me in the commerce is them daring to use 2021 as a baseline. This $170 billion number looks like a big number. So why contrast it against a number when everybody knows the world was shut down? To me, that seemed like a stretch. I just think we're going to know because Gary says markets give you real numbers.
Right.
The foreign direct investment, the real capital flows, this stuff won't lie in the end. The problem is you're not going to know next week, next month, when a lot of us want to kind of see how it's going. It's 6 months, 12 months, 18 months till a more objective assessor can see how it's going.
We didn't hear squat out of the White House on deals in 22, 23, 24.
Right.
I didn't see any of that going on at
Gary,
that time.
do you want the deals being announced by Washington, D.C.? Why? I mean, you're on my side about the government involved in the economy. Why do we need the government being a business broker?
Because politics is about marketing.
All right.
And as we enter, 13 months away from a midterm election that's quite important to this president, it's understandable. And by the way, both sides would do that.
This, to me, just looks like a lot of, hey, America, this is what's happening. It's marketing. You have to tell your story. We're active around the globe and things are happening. You know, in a world where information doesn't always flow as freely as it ought to, maybe it's helpful.
By the way, he was doing this before he got inaugurated his first term. I was there in Trump Tower, and he was having business leader after business leader coming in to do the camera shot. They're going to invest here. They're going to do this with SoftBank and some of these things. But to your point about the Biden administration, what an incredible opportunity he missed, where Russia goes to war in Ukraine. The Americans are the leaders in exporting liquefied natural gas. We can provide to Asia and Europe and have a geopolitical leverage over Russia. And what does the Biden administration do? Not go ink big deals and do Lutnick Trump marketing.
He
shuts down the building.
Well, he told Speaker Johnson he didn't sign that executive order, so I don't want to go down the auto pen rabbit hole. But
the auto pen shut it down.
I'll just say this to counter on the Trump thing. Listen, you expect presidents to lean into their strengths. This is a strength for him, business and deal making. So I could see him leaning into that to say, that's what I brought to the table. It's part of what people voted for.
We're all in agreement. The marketing is important, and President Trump is so good at it. The only thing I'm saying is that the question originally was, do we feel optimism that this is going to drive economic growth? The marketing of this cannot drive economic growth.
Right. It has to function properly.
The proof is in the pudding.
Factuality.
So OpenAI is now the most valuable private company in the world. It just completed a deal to help employees sell shares in the company at a $500 billion valuation. David, these are not, or I'll put it this way, these are pretty sophisticated investors who are buying the shares from OpenAI employees. That's giving us the valuation. So it could be bubbly, but people who are supposed to be in the know seem to think this is just about right.
Well, okay, SoftBank's pretty sophisticated. They paid a gazillion for WeWork, and it's currently the price of an iPad.
Okay, fine.
No, but Brian,
you don't like SoftBank,
but
Drive
it's not
Capital.
SoftBank. No. The brilliant people here are the employees that are getting to sell shares, get liquidity on a fully private company at that billion-plus valuation. I don't think that the people are wrong or right. I think it is speculative. When you start saying $500 billion, there's a way in which we value companies. It's discounting future cash flows.
Yep.
And you don't have cash flows, so you can't discount them. It's speculative. That means some people are going to win big and some people are going to lose big. It happened with the internet. It happened with the cloud. It happened with social media. Everyone talks about the huge success stories because there were big ones, wealth creation. Gary was probably invested in a lot of the big ones, but there were a lot of losers there, big losers. The AI thing is going to create big winners and losers. I've spent all week here in the city in meetings. I can't believe the ferocity of debate over AI between people that think it is absolutely going to change the world and that $500 billion will look like a deal to people that think this is the next MySpace.
Some days I think AI is going to change the world, and some days I think it's a dot-com kind of bubble that is going to, be bound to burst at some point.
But can I say something so important to the point you're making? The internet did change the world. And a bunch of those companies went down 99%.
Right.
The cloud did change the world. All of the AI and OpenAI's valuation are two different things. AI could be a very efficient tool. But we own a lot of companies. Gary, you might think some are kind of boring, your consumer staples and
I don't think they're boring.
But you know what I mean. They're not the high growth AI companies. Right. People say, well, what if we miss AI by owning these companies? AI isn't going to be real if it doesn't benefit Procter & Gamble and McDonald's and Walmart. It has to eventually be a real thing.
Yeah.
Right now, the only money being made are on the makers of it, the chips with NVIDIA and this OpenAI private type stuff. I think it's entirely possible that it is a big thing, and yet it's still going to have huge losses.
How is AI changing some of our big companies or changing the way in which we do business and interact with each other? I'm not sure that there are enough kind of everyday examples of that yet.
Everything has to come down to revenue, though, Lydia. And this is the thing: is when someone says there's this huge thing changing the world, I say I agree. Now, who's getting paid? Because the more people talk about ChatGPT doing something, I want to know what the revenue is.
Exactly.
It killed those .coms.
That's exactly. I was going to say that. The problem with that was everybody was excited about it, but the earnings growth wasn't there. They couldn't actually monetize it in a real way. Some companies could, but not everybody could.
David Bahnsen, great to see you. Thanks for being with us.